Hi, I'm Chris Blackburn.
Hi, I'm Rob Hawks.
And this is Training Tuesday, 30 minutes every week of complimentary practical sales training.
We are live and ready to go. So, welcome everyone to Training Tuesdays with myself, Chris Blackburn.
You're Rob Hawks.
And you're Rob Hawks.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I'm Rob Hawks and this is Chris. How you doing, mate? Good to see you.
I'm doing really well. Back into the office, so if people have been following us for the last few weeks, what's it been, 8 weeks now? We've been back at the property, so nice to be back in the office and be able to do this together. So thank you everyone for putting your time aside. What are we going to be covering today, Rob?
So today we are covering tonality. We're going to be looking at so this is the fourth of this kind of 6 series that we're doing on tonality. We're also going to do aspects of non-verbal communication, but essentially we're going to look at what tonality is, why it's important, and some examples as well. Mm-hmm. So, as always, please feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. Join us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Apparently, it's all go today. So, but Chris, just do you want to talk about what we covered last week to bring those up to speed with maybe who weren't here?
Yeah. So we're following our acronym BBETS. If guys have been following us for a while, we're big on acronyms. So last week we covered effective and efficient questioning when we're looking to build rapport. The week prior to that as well, I know you didn't ask that, but the week prior to that, we started on big picture questions. So as an example, what do you like is a very broad spectrum of the information or the answer that you receive. So what we covered last week was going what we call primary, secondary and tertiary level question, and really digging deep into what the customer is actually looking for before we offer a solution. So we covered effective and efficient questioning.
We did indeed. So I guess from a perspective of maybe those on Facebook or people that are in the chat, maybe just something around what you took from last week's session or something that you enjoyed. So for those that are in on Zoom, if you guys want to write, for those who did join us last week, and for those on Facebook, I've got that to the left of me if you wonder what I'm looking at. What did you take from effective and efficient questions? Maybe an example of some effective questions that you might want to put in there. Hey Mike, nice to see you, mate. So yeah, just want to write in there what you took from last week, and I'll double check on Facebook too. So we got anyone putting into comments? What sort of examples of effective questions? What did you take from last week's session?
Yeah, or even the guys that wasn't on there, just an example of what you believe an effective question to be when you're discovering somebody's need when consulting. So the name's Bengo on there. You guys may be relatively new. If you could pop in there what you'd feel of if you're getting a consult to you or you're providing a consultation, what would you classify as an effective question?
So these guys are in the working for one of the cleaning companies, Inside Out Facility Services.
Awesome.
So,
pleasure to meet you both.
Yeah.
Have to do the standard wave.
All right. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to look at, if we've got no more questions inside of there, then what we're going to look at is, okay, question, relate. Yeah, awesome. That's interesting. You spoke about that before. Yeah,
so what Mike's meaning there, that's a great takeaway, is probably the best way to explain that. You know when you're walking down the street and you're in a busy city centre and you've got somebody with a clipboard and all they do is question. It's very hard, and I don't find that they build a level of rapport. So what Mike's saying there is that we go question, answer, relate. So once we dig into the why or the tertiary level question, actually relating back to the customer through first or third party stories that assist building more value in you, the company, the products and services you offer, but also building rapport. So that's an awesome takeaway, Mike.
I think for the why just to kind of finish off that, why is it important to ask the right questions to build rapport, do you reckon?
Because if people like you, they'll listen to you, and when they trust you, they'll do business, right? So yeah. I think if they've got a strong rapport with yourself, they're more likely to move forward if your product can help them do so.
Yeah, I reckon you hit the nail on the head there. So I think the biggest thing around that rapport building aspect of asking the right questions is understanding your prospect, listening to what they've actually got to say, and actually listening as well. Because I think one of the one of the big challenges that people face is they don't actually listen. Yeah, as Chris said there, people by people. So again, if you want to get involved in the chat, guys, those are on Zoom. Hey Glenn, but if you want to get involved in the chat on Facebook, please do feel free. But
and the spin selling's awesome, guys, as well. Yeah, very, very good in there. So today we are covering the next step of building rapport, tonality. So as we know, we try to keep this as engaging as we possibly can. So for people on Facebook, Instagram, Zoom, if you could just drop in there on a scale of 1 to 10. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is tonality in building rapport in your opinion?
So scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to build rapport? Hey Mandy, hey Katie. Hey Aaron on Facebook, so just a bit of technical difficulties there. But on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not, 10 being the most, we're getting 10.
That's okay. Good to see. Second question to that, why?
Why is it?
So why is that very, very important? Everyone's scoring a 10. I couldn't agree with you more, but why is tonality to you guys very important?
Yeah, why do you think it is? I think it's a good question to ask, because I think sometimes, we give the hows. We talk about, this is what you do, but I think the importance of why it is. So we've got assertiveness, being an expert.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. In the first 5 seconds, I couldn't agree with you more. I think having the authority, being an expert, being enthusiastic, the three fundamentals of making a winning first impression and absolutely making yourself feel comfortable, setting the tone and engagement as well. So yeah.
So just write this down for me as a bit of a quote or a precursor to covering tonality today, is that tone of voice conveys character. It's not about what you say, but the way that you say it. I'll say that again.
I've heard that before.
Have you?
Yeah, by the missus.
Oh, I thought you meant me earlier when I was practicing. It's what you're throwing me off there. Bearing in mind, this is the first one we've done together for 8 weeks. So
I'm not playing ball. I'm here to interrupt as much as I can.
Oh yeah, good stuff, mate. I know how you like being interrupted. Okay, so tone of voice conveys character. It's not about what you say, but the way that you say it. So something that Ryan always explained to me, for those of you who don't know, Ryan is our director. He immersed himself in psychology of selling and understanding the intricacies of behaviour and consumer behaviour. Tonality actually bypasses the conscious part of the brain. So it goes into the subconscious where real decisions are made. Now for those of you in our academy who's go straight to, I want to learn how to close, and learning about silence in the close. When we're not saying anything, it's the internal dialogue in the brain that really starts to process the information. Now you can't control someone's mind, we're not Jedis, but we can control the questions that they ask themselves. So if we actually change the way that we're saying something, it actually changes the value attached to it. It changes the emotion or the logic behind it, and it actually gets through to where the real decisions are made, and that's where we can really influence or inspire someone's decision. Would you agree with that?
100%. Well, it's 9/10 of our communication, right? It's delivered through tone and body language, but the way the world is happening, unfortunately, we've not been around humans as much as we normally are used to, so there's a lot more communication, telecommunication based now, so I think more than ever tonality is important, especially if you are on a phone. And
when you're in face to face, then obviously the non-verbals will come through. We've got the luxury of seeing a couple of the guys here and their webcams. If Glenn's looking very interested with his hand on his face, he's engaged. But if he's like this, he's not saying a lot. I'm not suggesting he is, for those of you that can't see him. Sorry to pick on you, mate. But if he was sat like that, he's not saying anything, but what his body language is suggesting that he's actually not interested, or he's maybe not buying what we're putting down, or whatever. If you've got somebody who's like squinting their face, shaking their head, they might not be saying anything, but they're actually speaking volumes in their body language. So it's an important ability to be able to master, but we're going to focus more so on the tone side of things, because again, we've been talking about over the phone communication, Zoom communication, video conferencing, which there are aspects of that, but so to help people understand the importance of it, what example could you give? Do you think, Chris, that to convey the importance of tone? Like if we were to give a word or a phrase or something, what could we say? Maybe there's people out there that don't believe that tone. I mean, the guys that are watching have all said 10, but what about for those who maybe don't believe that it's important or can't quite understand the concept?
Yeah, I think is when you ask the same question. So the easiest one that we sort of give, I couldn't agree with yourself, Glenn, there. Email, you can easily misread an email. I said this a couple of weeks ago, the amount of times I receive a text message, and this is the example as well, as what are you doing here? You can say that sentence, 27 different ways and get 27 different responses from a customer. Like if you're texting somebody and say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But then if you go, what are you doing? It can give a different connotation to it. So I feel like the power of tonality for myself is that you can say the exact same words and have a completely separate outcome.
Yeah, like using that example, like I've got a 3-year-old daughter, if I'm in the office and she comes in and I say, what are you doing here? The tone would suggest that's playful, it's fun. But if I said, what are you doing here? Like, and the emphasis on the you, it invokes a whole different feeling. The example that the guys have said there, can I help you? It can be, or can I help you? Or can I help you? It's very different, and it conveys a whole different feeling. Yeah, the downward tone can be maybe endearing, upwards could be slightly confronting.
How often does it go when you call in a business and you're looking to book in with somebody and somebody answers the call and say, ABC Limited, how can I help? And you say, hey, I'm Chris, how are you? And you go, yeah, I'm good, thank you, what do you want? And instantly there you're feeling, you're like, sorry, but yeah, I'm doing really well, how can I help? I think just the way that you deliver that question, it can be the same words, but the way that the communication go from then. So with what the guys shared there about, the winning first impression and really using your tone from the first word that leaves your mouth, I couldn't agree with that more.
I think as well, when someone says, yeah, good afternoon, ABC Limited, how can I help? Good afternoon, ABC Limited, how can I help you? It's like, whoa, you hate your job.
For sure.
Already. Like, I already don't want to talk to you. And bearing in mind that there are 8 macro tones, we're not going to go through all of them today, and there's micro tones, but I think it's important that we understand and establish that first impression, as we've spoken about in previous webinars, is important. Just as a bit of an interaction, Facebook and Zoom as well. Can you maybe just share a time, or maybe just agree and say, have there been a time where you've actually been put off by the tone of somebody's voice in an interaction? Like a booking, or have you been in a situation where just the tone of the way that somebody's being has just made you not want to be around them? Just put in the chat yes, or maybe even give an example of that, because I think it's so important. Somebody said to me the other day about, well, aren't you trying to change their mind or convince them of something that by being or using tonality? But I think that we do it naturally in life anyway. Yeah, if you go to if you said to Ellis and you were taking her on a trip and you went, well, I've got us some tickets and I've got the last 2 spots. But if you said, I've got us some tickets, and you leant in and you said, and I've got the 2 spots, the final 2 spaces. I'm like, wow, thanks, Chris.
It changes the outcome.
It does. It changes how I feel about the information.
It's not really just professional, it's personal as well, where you can improve on that. Like for myself, I never really studied tonality and the power behind that. I've been, for people that may not have known myself, I've done sales for just over 15 years now as well, and I've always just communicated the same on here as I have to you, and I never really understood why that was so powerful until I got put in a call centre of 3,000 people, and it was in insurance, so it was, as Glenn would know, it can be very verbatim with what you have to say. And I couldn't figure out why somebody was outperforming me. They were saying exactly the same words on the script, but they were doing X amount in revenue and I was doing this amount in revenue, and I couldn't understand the reason why until the manager pulled me aside and said, it's not what they're saying, it's how they're saying it. And I was like, That makes sense.
We've coached thousands of people, and especially in some industries where they are saying the same thing, and they will blame all the other external factors apart from themselves. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. Is that you can say someone can say the same thing, but you can say it 100 different ways. So for me, as an understanding of that, maybe as a practical. What are the key parts of the tones? Obviously, we've got 8 macro tones. What for you are the most important? Would it be question tones? Would it be when you're answering questions? Like what would you if someone's watching this and they've never studied tonality before? What would you recommend them focusing on first as most important? Do you think? Put you on the spot.
I'd probably have to agree with the guys. I'd probably say our pace lead is for me the one that sort of sets the tone. I think if you needed one, so pace lead is essentially being 10% more enthusiastic than the customer. So as an easy practical, if they're okay, you're good. If they're good, you're great. If they're great, you're amazing. If they're amazing, you're on top of the world. If they're on top of the world, it's, as Jack would say, it's Christmas morning, you know. So I think being 10% more enthusiastic, it's our job to bring up the enthusiasm level and not have a prejudgment on how enthusiastic we should be. As an example, if you're giving somebody a call and they're okay, and they say, I'm okay, how are you? And you go, I'm amazing, thank you. There's what we call distance management in the two. So you
but
can
also
actually,
the way that you say amazing, because you can't be like, I'm amazing. You've actually got to,
I'm amazing. Yeah. So they can create a bit of a distance management. So what I'd say is pace lead from the intro, and then also the outro is where we pace lead into the trial close. So that's for me. What about yourself?
Oh, no, just to unpack that as well a little bit further, because some people may not have done our training. So obviously when we're using a tie down, which is a closed question, so does that make sense? Are you following me? And then we get a yes. Then we can positively affirm the yes with a with that.
Good,
amazing.
Great, amazing.
Great.
Yeah,
Bringing the enthusiasm level. Someone on Facebook actually wrote about mirroring. Mirroring is actually an old school sales training technique where the only, I don't want to say issue because I don't want to get confrontational, but with mirroring, we can't go anywhere. If I'm mirroring your tone, then we don't
stay consistent.
Exactly to them. But if we actually then are that 10% better, as you said, we can alleviate the levels of enthusiasm until we get to the close, where we would then, as we would suggest it, we would collapse into a more reasonable tone when you're closing. One tip for closing, and a lot of people talk about tone in the close, is that you should never let excitement get into your voice in the close, making sure that it's just the everyday occurrence. You know, we always talk about the postman doesn't celebrate every time he posts a letter because he's doing his everyday. So when we are closing, make sure that we're using that kind of reasonable tone of voice. But for me,
and I guess just on that can be really difficult. Whether you're transacting $10 or $10 million. As a salesperson, when you feel like you can help somebody so much, the excitement is going to come in to the tonal range. So having a reasonable person, and it's a no big deal. It doesn't matter how full of endorphins you are. I feel like if you can relax that, it allows the customer to be relaxed, because as Rob said, if you've got a level of excitement in your voice, the customer's going to think, what's in it for them? Are they making a lot of money out of this? Why are they so excited to get my credit card? I feel like that for me, the pace lead and reasonable person would be the two.
And the one of the lines, or one of the things that we talk about, the language patterns that we say quite regularly, is that people don't make decisions in states of confusion. Your tone can actually confuse people. For example, if someone's asking you a question around, okay, well, how long is that going to be? And you said 30 minutes. The uptone, as the IOFS guys have just said, the uptone can be confronting, but it can also be confusing. 30 minutes? Yeah. It's like, do you actually know? Yeah. I mean, if you're saying, so will your training increase our sales results? Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, do you actually know that it will? And then this is where we would use one of my favorite tones, which is the absolute certainty tone. It's like, just correct. Absolutely. How long will it be? 30 minutes.
So where would you deliver absolute?
Absolute certainty. When delivering facts and figures, someone says to you, I read on your website something around the average transaction value, or the average increase in revenue. What percentage was that?
Yeah, so if you went, I don't know, 41%?
41%? The tone suggests that you're not sure, but I would use it there and say 41%. It is non-negotiable. Categorically, based on all of the results we've had over the years, I'm not saying all of this in words, I'm literally saying 41%.
Yeah.
And I would just sit there with that.
And if there's any thoughts around where would I use these particular tones in my sales process, whether that is a 30-minute process or a 30-day process, there's an online webinar inside the Academy on what tones to use at each stage of your sales process. So I'd highly recommend to jump in there and re-watch that one on demand anyway.
I think the re-watching and re-going over stuff I think is key in any sort of learning environment. Just had a question from Erin. Hey Erin, on Facebook, that's why I'm looking down there.
And we'll open it up to Zoom as well. The guys on Zoom that were on here as well. Any questions, please drop them in. If there's anything that me and Rob have covered so far that you'd like digging in further, we've got 8 minutes, so please feel free to drop some questions in there as well.
Yeah, so Erin's asked, when visiting regular customers, great happy excitement with seeing them, and then they tend to mimic or are the opposite, which is then I lower the tone. Is happy the best foot to start off with? That's an excellent question. Erin, we would look at bottling our enthusiasm. Like Chris said earlier, we don't want to create a disconnection between them and us. You know, if someone's only having an okay day and we come up too enthusiastic, I don't want to be around you. So I would be very mindful in being wary of where they're at, based on their body language, how you approach them, how you called them. You know, if you call somebody up and you say, hey, how are you? And they say, yeah, I'm good. Their tone suggests that they're not good. So actually listening to how they are responding, what does their tone suggest? You know, like, if for example, if I said, so, $3,000 for the Academy, are you ready to move forwards? And they go, yeah, that to me suggests that they're not
your green light.
Yeah, they're like, if they said, absolutely, then great, let's check them out. They go, yeah. So yeah, being really mindful, Erin, of how they are. So I would always think about not going in too enthusiastic. Don't go in and just trying to gauge it on where they are. I think that it is better to start off as okay. Remember, we're never worse than good, but good can be delivered. I mean, Ryan always says that good is the enemy of great, but we have to make sure that we're not going in with too much enthusiasm. Otherwise, we could end up breaking rapport and having too much of a disconnection. Different industries will also have different. I remember when I worked in advertising, calling lawyers, especially of the older age demographic, they would be a lot more quieter. Tone would be lower. I'm not going to come in like a whip it with a bum full of dynamite. I'm not going to be coming in a million miles an hour going, hey, well, I'm going to say some sales training or advertising. I'm going to be like, good afternoon, Rob, ISR training. How are you? Because especially if you're calling enterprise clients, for example, somebody who's been in business for a long time. Whereas somebody also put it in regards to behavior, disc profiling. If you know that you're dealing with somebody dominant rather than an I, for example, then you might want to modify your tone slightly based on their their behavioural
That's why
style.
I think it's so hard to sort of preset, sort of have an idea of how you're going to get into that conversation, because you don't know how the customer's day's going, you don't know what situation they're in. So I think, like Rob said there, just make sure that you don't have a preset, sort of enthusiasm level, and actively listening to the customer.
Because that active listening is part of the, some say 80-20, some say 70-30, listening, twice as much, 3 times as much as you're talking. If you can't gauge where they're at with their answers, and you're not actually waiting, using that technique that you mentioned,
the 1, 2, 3 talk,
the 1, 2, 3 talk, which Chris spoke about. Again, if you're in the Academy, go back and listen to Chris talk about that. We haven't got time to go into that today, but actually waiting for them to give their response, really hearing how are they actually talking to me. You know, and same goes when we're delivering some important points. If we're asking questions, you know, don't get confused with asking an empathetic question in a curiosity tone, because you'll actually lose the ability to be able to invoke the right response. Same if we're influencing based on body language. You know, you don't want to squint your eyes and nod and appeal to the empathetic side of somebody if you're just dealing with facts and figures. That kind of curiosity, like, I really want to know, tell me. It's that I'd like to know. Whereas you soften your tone if you're asking a question around pain or something that's been difficult.
I think it's good to know the process, but for me, tonality, I just be authentic with it. Like, as much as there's particular tones to use at each stage, I think be real with the customer. Like, generally, if you're going to ask a question to receive information, generally care, and it'll just come across naturally anyway.
Well, being authentic and real, if you've never studied tonality, it's actually really difficult to comprehend. I would imagine that most people would do this naturally, being genuine, guys, you're right. You know, if you're going to, like I said, be delivering bad news, you're not going to do it in an excited, happy tone. Your pitch is going to be high. I'm not going to give an example. I really want to now. You're going to deliver it softer, slower. You're going to take a little bit of time over your words.
But I guess if you've got an end goal in mind, let's say you're thinking about making a sale before a sale can be made, as an example, your tone could shift because you're in a completely different mindset, if that makes sense.
And that's like Mandy said here about I used to get so excited in the close that when you're like and I mean, how do you want to pay? Like, it's like, whoa, well, what are you getting out of this?
And it's hard when you offer a service like Mandy that helps people with their health and their well-being and nutrition and everything that Mandy's product does. It's hard to, especially like for the training that we do, once we know the business that we're going to be supporting and the results that they're going to generate through the training, you're going to get excited for the customer. But I believe it's about getting the commitment, going into that process. Again, we're talking about closing, but going into that process, getting the commitment, and then asking the customer, how are you feeling about your decision? You know, are you nervous, excited, a little bit of both, and allow the customer then to bring the enthusiasm up. So when you finish the interaction, they finish on a high, and not on the last thought that they've just transacted with yourself.
And also in that sense, like, that curiosity of how are you feeling? That's like, I really genuinely want to know. I'm not like, so how are you feeling about all of this?
Now it's done.
Well, now that I've taken your money, how are you feeling? Like, you excited? Because that just suggests that I don't care.
Like I say, just be genuine.
And a lot of people will remember that subconsciously, if you're not conveying that you enjoy your job, if you're not conveying that this is something that you're genuinely passionate in, that'll come across in your tone. Frustrated, you haven't made a sale in a while, maybe things are tough because of COVID, and you're really like, so are we going to move forwards? Like, it's like, okay, well, why? Like, what is the reasoning behind this? So I think it's incredibly important. One of the biggest things, and I'll encourage all of our Academy clients to do this, when you go into any of our training, listen to the way that Ryan and Jack deliver their training. Listen to the way that they convey the points that they're making. Every single thing that they're saying, every point that they're making, the tone in which they're doing it is there's a reason behind it. So it's not just when talking about tonality that we use tonality. We're actually doing it all the time. And that interaction when you're watching somebody deliver on stage. I mean, Thursday afternoon, guys, if you're around, come and watch on Facebook Live Ryan with Harry Singer, how to become a better speaker.
That's on live at 8 p.m. Queensland time on Thursday.
Because he will be covering aspects of this on the deliverance. I mean, there's no reason why.
There he is.
Oh, there we go.
Friday, 8 p.m. Be there or
Friday.
be swear. Thursday.
Thursday. You can't come in and
I was just listening.
Crasher.
Sorry guys, just sabotaging that. I'll leave it to the professionals.
Thanks,
the setup. It looks amazing.
That was the tone of that. So Thursday.
That was absolute certainty time.
Absolute certainty. Yeah. So, but there's a reason why
solid delivery.
Somebody on stage can control a room of 1,000 people, 2,000 people, because their tone and their body language would suggest that they've done this before. I mean, you ever been in a room where someone's walked in and you're like, geez, that guy's important, and they haven't even said anything.
Yeah.
It's because of the way, and we haven't got time to go into body language. For those in the training, if you do want to look into that, Jack does some really great sessions on where to sit, where to have your hands, whether you're talking to a male or talking to a female. There's some great stuff in there. But we do have a question on Facebook. Yes, Jared, that will be included in the academy, the one with Harry. Aaron's asked, how do you counteract a lower tone customer who responds with a negative response when you don't want to encourage ongoing negative talk? Really difficult. For me, very quickly, I would actually gloss over the negativity. I wouldn't give it the time of day. I don't know about you. If someone's being negative, like I would acknowledge it, but I would move on very quickly.
I'd do what we follow is our art technique: acknowledge, respond, and then transition, and again pace, lead, and actually try and bring up some enthusiasm on that customer. So, them words, how you doing? Yeah, not too bad. That's our job now, to bring that enthusiasm. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Thank you so much for asking. I'll go in okay because it's 10% more enthusiastic. And as Rob said, when I'm asking questions and they provide an answer with the closed question that I ask, I'll then naturally bring up that enthusiasm level up from the client. I don't believe it's my job in the first 60 seconds to make sure she feels on top of the world. I think it's about slowly but surely bringing that up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think and also just not getting involved too much in that. If you know that they're a negative person maybe already, then avoiding open-ended questions that could be like that. So, for example, if you said, so how's your week been? Great? Good? Yeah, you've been working hard? Like, things going okay? Because you can actually influence the way that they will take that question. So, I mean, how you been? You been good? Like, okay? You think things going well? Busy? It's just like I'm actually fishing for a negative response there, and that's what negative people will do with you. You've got to gloss over it. Erin, with what you do, I know that you speak to a lot of business owners and going in and out of companies, so you're going to get a mixed bag. But it definitely, you can control that, definitely.
And we are 3 minutes over, but there's an example I want you to give of why tonality is so important. Before we wrap things up today, next training Tuesday, next week, 5 o'clock, third party stories, 5 o'clock Queensland time. Look forward to seeing you all in there, but Rob's going to put a bow on this session today of why it's so important.
What Chris is highlighting at, and for those of you who've been to our seminars, you know that Jack does this example of you can have words with no tone, so we talk like this and you won't listen. So he gives that example, and then he said, but you can't have tone with no words. And then he does this bit where he goes, and then people goes, oh yeah, bloody hell mate, yeah, how can I pay with a MasterCard? Yeah, Jack does it better than me, but there you go. Thanks. Now that's in the world, that's on Facebook. You can replay that bit, Jackson, if you want to replay that bit specifically and put it on TikTok. Be my guest, guys. It is the end of on that note.
We are back in the office.
Yeah, we are back in the office, mate. It's an absolute pleasure to be back with you. Stitching me up like that. I didn't have to do that. I could have said I don't know what you're talking about and moved on. As Chris said 2 minutes ago, we are going to be finishing off our series of Building Rapport over the course of the next few weeks. Next week we're going to be covering third-party stories, but we're going to be doing a little bit of a process on how to tell stories. You're going to love it. It's going to be something that for some of you you've maybe never heard before, but it's definitely something that will benefit the way that you tell a story. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, follow us on LinkedIn. If you want to reach out, shoot us a message. Please feel free to do that. And if you feel that anybody would benefit from what we've been speaking about today, feel free to tag them in this. Guys, if you're in the academy and you want to do more on tonality, there is a ton of content from Jack and Ryan in there as well. But guys, we're going to wrap up now. It's been an absolute pleasure. We will see you next week. Remember the new time of 5 p.m, not 4:30. And we will see you then.
Stay safe. All right, see you all next week.
Take care. See you guys.
See ya.